Chicago!
Hi, I'm John, and today I've mostly been playing Quap.
And I'm John, and I don't know what Quap is.
And I'm not John, and despite what we told you last week, we've decided to record this episode just before we go to Norway. Because
we're live in Norway right now.
We're not, because we decided that we wouldn't have enough time because we had been inundated with private messages from fans and beautiful Norwegian women that want to come and meet us when we're there, and they only direct message us because that way you can't prove us that we're lying. So this is With John Rather, a podcast where we tell you we're going to record in a foreign country and then we don't. It's back to the original format. It's me to ask questions again. I ask them would you rather questions, they answer, and normally somebody leaves very upset. Well, yeah, it's you or I if we lose, and John if he wins. So and we didn't do this last week, and I'm very upset, but we'll dive right in. Would you rather that all of your cutlery was twice the size or half the size?
Twice the size. I hate small cutlery.
I would rather my cutlery was half the size, because then I might lose weight, because then I think, oh my god, it's taking me ages to eat this lasagna. I probably should stop by now. And then, as much as the portion would be the same size, I would be eating less. And I think if I had double-sized cutlery, my mouth would still be the same size it is now, which is fine with the cutlery I've got, but if I had a fork that was twice as wide, I think I'd end up catching the side of my mouth and stabbing myself repeatedly. I mean, that's not cool. A double-sized knife would be cut knife, like just cutting steak with a Bowie knife would be fun, but all other cutlery becomes stupid and useless.
Well, a dessert spoon would become a teaspoon, and a teaspoon would become an espresso spoon.
Well, I exclusively eat ice cream with a teaspoon because it makes it last longer.
Well, this is the only flaw that I've seen to my question, because I can see pros and cons for both sides, and it's up to you to discern me from one or the other. But the issue is if you ever order an ice cream sundae, the handle wouldn't be long enough to get to the bottom.
No, you tape them together, it's fine.
Tape them together.
Or you get a banana split or a waffle. Or you just go, I'll have a sundae, please, and then an extra bowl. And they go, why? And you go, trust me. And then you just pour it out into the bowl, and then it's still an ice cream sundae. But they don't serve it to you in a ridiculous long Knickerbocker Glory glass, which you would not be able to fit a double width spoon in.
Okay, number one, if you mix ice cream and tape, it's gonna go soggy. And number two,
I'm not putting my tape in the ice cream.
Yeah, you are. Number two, you are if you're clumsy.
Judge rules, you are.
Judge
rules, I'm clumsy. Thanks for that, guys. A lot of faith in me. I've been eating for longer than either of you two.
Number two,
twice as much. Sons of bitches.
Number two.
You're a number two.
I've forgotten what number two was now.
Number two, you shut up.
Number one, shut up. Number two.
Don't talk about shut up.
Number two is that I hate small cutlery for the exact same reason that you think that you like it. Because the best thing about the best thing about eating food is eating lots of food. And if I've got small cutlery and can only eat less food, then that's bad.
But we've all discussed this, John. One day your metabolism will slow down.
How are you going to defeat the all-you-can-eat restaurant if you've got tiny cutlery? That's what they do. They give you small cutlery and give you small plates. That's what all-you-can-eat restaurants do, and it's to trick you. And don't say
how you defeat them is you eat the prawns and you eat the steak. You ignore all the veg.
Don't say you've never been to. Every single person who ever goes to a all-you-can-eat restaurant, they always go with their friend who can eat a lot of food, and they go, ha ha ha, we're going to put them out of business. That's literally the joke that everyone makes. And how are you going to do that with a small fork? You and your brother say that
every time we go to Spiceland.
How are you going to do that with a small fork? You're not. You're going to do it with a big fork.
One of the things that makes me most upset on this planet is when people go to an all-you-can-eat buffet and you see them from when you're sitting down, because normally they're quite big places, and you see somebody walking back with like loads of chips or loads of rice, and it's like, what are you doing? Why would you fill your plate up with that stuff that's super cheap and super filling. I don't. The same as when you go to a restaurant and order a really expensive meal and then fill up on free bread. Like, why? Why are you doing this to yourself? I always get one chip just so I've had like one of my 5 a day. Don't get me wrong, but.
Okay, here's another one for you. If you go to an ultra fancy restaurant and you turn up with your spade and your pitchfork, isn't that just as bad as turning up to an all-you-can-eat buffet with the small knife and fork designed for action men?
I've always said that if I opened a restaurant, the quote, the motto of the restaurant would be quantity, not quality. And I've consistently said that for 10 years or more.
Since when?
Kind of like your catchphrase.
10 years or more.
I've never heard you say it, but I believe everything you say, so...
Yeah. So nothing if not consistent.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a civilized, gentrified Godzilla? Because I have. That's one of the things that keeps me awake at night. And if I were to only use a small knife and fork, then before I sit down and eat my meal, I could pretend I was attacking Tokyo and then going for a buffet at the zoo.
Is your little one old enough to be at school yet? Have you been to like a parents' evening or anything?
No, not yet.
No? Okay, well look forward to that, because do you remember like early school years, the toilets were obviously a lot smaller for children to use, and when you're an adult, those be the toilets you've got to use. So you've got that coming.
Also, you know the best way to have a gentrified Godzilla that's dignified is give Godzilla cutlery. That's twice human size, and it'll be the same.
I think you're underestimating just how big Godzilla is.
Yeah, so the cutlery would still be tiny for him, even if it was double sized for us. That's what I'm saying.
Ah.
Well, no, I said I wanted to feel like a gentrified Godzilla.
Yeah, and I'm saying what's better than feeling like a gentrified Godzilla as a real gentrified Godzilla.
With a top hat and a monocle.
By using cutlery that's way too big.
For a human, but not for Godzilla. Cutlery that is twice too big for a human is still half too small for Godzilla.
I want to feel that I am Godzilla. So why would I use stupid size cutlery?
It's not about somebody else using the cutlery, John. It's about you.
Yeah, and I would never go there.
Because you haven't thought it through.
No, I've got the choice. In fact, my drawer that's got cutlery in it at home has got dessert forks and it's got normal forks. And I don't often have dessert, so most of the time I'm using the main person forks. And I don't choose to go for the dessert fork to eat my main. Because is ridiculous.
A dessert fork isn't a dessert fork, it's a threek, because it only has 3 prongs.
I thought that was a fish fork.
Or a fish fork, because it's still my friend at university. She had, at the time we called them tridents because I wasn't smart enough to have made that joke. But a fork is because it's got 4 prongs.
That is genius.
Yeah. John
yes.
John with a child. I'm sorry to always bring him into it, but I'm assuming you have child cutlery in your house. There's nothing stopping you doing this. I'm all ready to go in your favour, but then I thought of this. And there's nothing stopping you actually living out this fantasy. Well, a lot of your answers, actually, there's nothing stopping you living out the fantasy. You're very cemented in the real world, so why don't you do this?
Because the option of using ridiculous comedy cutlery or using my child's cutlery isn't on the table, because I do not have ridiculous, huge cutlery. I have normal person cutlery, which I use every day. But if the option were to use stupid stuff, or things that I use that I have at my disposal, I'll use that. And
so you'd rather use normal size, but that's not a choice in this story. With you. Okay, exactly. You win.
And as I said, I would prefer to use a teaspoon to eat my ice cream with. That's what I physically do. That's the choice I make every time I have ice cream.
Okay.
He already gave you the win. Let's just drop it.
All right, John, chill your beans. Let me get a refill on my rum, and then I'll drunkenly rant at you in a minute. And another thing. Okay, if you want to get in contact with me and send me rum, you can direct message me on Twitter or Instagram, or if you're really going to stalk me, do a bit of Facebooking at John Would Rather. No H's, because you can't find any H's in the ingredients of rum.
And if you'd like to get in contact with me, then buy me a bottle of whiskey, because whiskey has an H in it.
This is true. And if you just want to general inquiries, suggestions, anything like that, we're available on iTunes, Spotify. What's the other one we're available on?
Buzzsprout.
Yeah, Buzzsprout is our host. Big shout out to Buzzsprout, because they made it super, super easy for us starting out, and it's really easy to use. But you can tweet at us. We don't get as many tweets as we'd like, other than the direct messages that we receive from the amazingly attractive Norwegian people. Then it's hashtag at @woodjrather, either or, one of the above. Our biggest, what was it I was telling you our biggest listener base is located in at the moment? California?
San Bernardino or something.
I'll just double check, because...
What, was it San Jose?
San Jose. Shout out to San Jose.
Well, actually, oh, no, I was looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, San Jose, California.
Yeah, San Bernardino sucks ass.
Absolutely storming in front of the second place, which is Manchester, in Manchester, apparently. So I'm assuming that's England. But fourth place is Graysonville in Maryland, which is also interesting. So,
oh,
yeah, lots of American listeners will have to go to America next year instead of Norway.
Yep, I'm down for that. But I'm a little bit disappointed there aren't any people from Pittsburgh listening. I'd even stretch to Pennsylvania, as long as I could turn a blind eye to Philly. Fucking Philly.
Anyway, would you rather? This is quite an obscure question, so I'm hoping you've got your imagination and your imagination juice to hand.
Yeah, I just topped mine up.
So, you'll have to use your imagination for this question, but I'm sure you can. Imagination juice is in hand by the sounds of things. Would you rather have access and everything to do with the black colour in a deck of cards, or the red colour in a deck of cards?
Red. All day red.
I'd obviously go for the black colour, because what is more useful, a diamond and a heart, or a club and a spade? I'm going to club you in the head and then dig you a grave.
Do you know the joke about the deck of cards?
No.
It's a bit sexist, but not like I've not been on the show before. Why is a deck of cards like a woman? Because you need a heart.
A spade.
No, because you need a heart to love her, a diamond to marry her, a club to beat her, and a spade to bury the bitch.
Wow. From the one of us that's not married, that's good going, mate. You use that as your one eye opener.
Oh no, I'm still in the heart stage.
Aww.
I've not proposed yet. You've proposed and got married. You're on the club stage.
I'm well and truly in the club stage right now, mate. Don't worry about
that. You could make it nicer, couldn't you? You need a heart to marry her, a heart to love her, a diamond to marry her. You could still love her enough to go out clubbing with her when she wants to go dancing, and then a spade to do the gardening for when you retire.
I've always wondered why it's called a club when it looks like a 3-leaf clover.
Not a clue.
Shout out to Black Clover, Mac Lethal.
Mac Lethal. Met him twice, touched his arse. Then when I met him, he remembered me both times. Then got drunk with him in a topless bar, not a topless bar, a bikini bar where he did a gig with his MC Patrick, I believe. Bought his book off him there and then, got him to sign it with the slogan saying "fuck you" and naming two of my friends who at that point were listening to Mac Lethal. Nice. You weren't listening to him then, so I didn't include you in that.
See, yeah, I'd rather
ignore it. He doesn't get that. It's me. I'm having that. But yeah, you know what sells for a lot of money on the black market? Good quality heart. And if I've got access to them, I've also got access to diamonds.
You could have gone for blood diamonds, but no, you went straight for organ farming.
Yeah, because after organ farming, like blood diamonds don't seem quite as bad.
Yeah, true.
And you know what? You know where you can spend quality time? At the boat club.
Centre. The boat club.
In the boat club.
And B&Q.
Not Spearmint Rhino, the gentleman's club. The boat club. Oh, nice one, John. Wait, aim high.
I'm not the kind of douchebag that's going to go to a strip club when I can go to the boat club.
I sell diamonds and I don't care. Douching it up since 2019.
How are you going to dig out any diamonds if you don't have a spade?
I've got access to them. I've got people that do that for me.
Also, I'm a fan of heavy metal.
No, you're not.
Motorhead.
No, you're not.
The Ace of Spades.
Name me 3 Motorhead songs.
The Ace of Spades.
Name me 3 Motorhead songs.
Apart from the Ace of Spades.
Yes. Don't get on Google. Don't get on Spotify.
No.
No.
Because nobody listens to anything other than the Ace of Spades on repeat.
The funny
1914, Metropolis, Eat the Rich. There's 3.
There's a really good. We used to play SingStar a lot. I say growing up, I just don't play it as much now because it's very sad to play it alone. But one of the songs was Motorhead, Ace of Spades, and I remember teaching one of my friends it because he didn't really know the music. But there is a line right in the middle of like guitar solos and instrumental, which doesn't fit in with the rest of the song. It doesn't need to be there. It almost ruins the song. It's like the whole song's pretty much done, and it just goes, and don't forget the Joker. And it's like it was copy and pasted in as an afterthought. It just doesn't quite work. And I've never noticed it in the song until I had to sing it, and now it's all I hear when I'm listening to that song.
And don't forget the Joker. They're using that as a coda, and then they go into the solo.
Oh, I know, but
when you're doing SingStar.
Yes, exactly. I know it's quite a sort of out there question, but I mean it's no more strange than the cutlery one. So, anything else?
Are you looking down on me for my choice of organ harvesting and blood diamonds?
Not at all. Would have been my first go-to.
Damn straight.
I'm gonna use a spade to dig a hole.
You're great, because I've got men that's gonna go take your club.
No, I'm gonna dig a hole to China.
I'll use it as my hideout because I'm going to turn myself into a comic book villain.
No, you can't have clubs.
I'm taking these clubs.
Yeah, no, you can't.
I'm not even going to use them. I'm going to throw them into the sea.
No, but you can't have anything to do with them. That was the question. Only have anything to do with the reds or the blacks of a deck of cards.
I'm sure I can get someone else to landscape my garden for me.
No.
And yeah, if I can't go to a club, fine. I'm going to go to a titty bar.
Fair enough.
I'm fine. I'm happy with that. So John just has to die because he's not allowed a heart either.
True. John wins. I couldn't carry on. Like that's a very good point. Yeah, John wins. Unfortunately, sorry.
Boom, motherfuckers.
Okay, so John's already won 2 questions. Let's try and not make it a whitewash. Would you rather only listen to music pre-millennium or post-millennium?
I would only listen to music pre-millennium because I just think I'm an old man.
I could have foreseen that the choices would go in this direction, but do continue.
I'm just more of a...
You know the irony in your choice?
No.
Is you could listen to T-Rex's 21st Century Boy, but you'd actually only be able to listen to music from the 20th century.
Yeah.
Yes, you may have a larger back catalogue of music to choose from the Baroque period and from the Renaissance and the crazy Beethoven symphonies and all that jazz, and even maybe a bit of the New Romantics with soft sell and that. But out of spite, I'd listen to Malafis and Tool on repeat because I know that you couldn't, and I know they're your favourite bands, and a bit of art as well.
No, Tool started recording in like 1992, didn't they?
Yeah, but the best albums came out after the year 2000.
I mean, I don't know if that's true. Well, maybe it is.
I mean, the only 2 albums I've listened to by them are Anemia and 10,000 Hours, and I think I prefer 10. I think
Days.
Oh, sorry, 10,000. Yeah, 10,000 Hours is a TRC song, but I think I prefer 10,000 Days.
I could also listen to 10,000 Hours by TRC.
You could. The irony that I've noticed in this is that all of like the good pop music, and there is good pop music, but all of the best pop music was made exclusively in the era that John is only allowed to listen to and would refuse to listen to.
That's not true. I'd listen to Double D, Double Da, Double D, Double Da.
Eiffel 65. How do you not know the words to that song?
I just told you the words.
Okay. Would you listen to Michael Jackson?
That famous sex predator?
Yeah, but he was the king of pop.
That was one of his titles. The other one is the aforementioned sex predator.
Yeah, but just because of what somebody does doesn't make their music bad.
I'm sure there are lots of sex predators in the 21st century as well.
Lost Prophets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never asked me if I wanted to listen to Ian Barnacle-Face Watkins.
I bought, is it Liberation Translation? That album? Bought it from a charity shop like 2 months ago for £1. And I decided I was allowed to because the money was going to the charity and not supporting the bands. And therefore it was okay. Even though I like the music, it doesn't change.
I go with that, yeah.
Anyway, do continue. I like the fact in this question there's a lot of crossovers in what you like. So you could both listen to Slipknot, you could both listen to System of a Down, you could both listen to Tool, you could both listen to Green Day, but very different eras.
I can only listen to the early stuff. And everybody knows that every band, their early stuff is what's good. True story.
Depends on the band.
No, it doesn't. Name me a band where their early stuff is worse. The early stuff is always a lot more authentic, and it's their real roots. That's what they are who they really are as a band.
Here's a question.
They sell out and become mainstream and shit.
I would presume that by the way that I phrase millennium, 2000. So it ends 1999 on the 31st of December. That's when that ends for you.
First millennium.
No.
Oh damn! I can't listen to Wagner. Whoa, no, that's fine. He was in the 1400s. That's cool.
Because I know there were a lot of very good albums that came out in the year 2000. The first one that jumps to mind, and apologies if I'm incorrect, you might want to Google it, Google my stuff, but I'm sure Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory came out in the year 2000, which, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the best, like, for me personally, because it has a lot, like, I listened to Hybrid Theory as an album way before I got into rock and metal, but it's definitely the best nu metal album out.
I'd argue, well, no, in fact, Deftones would argue with me over that, actually, as well. I can't really put Deftones in nu metal, but everyone else does, because that's what they do.
See, my girlfriend tells me that Deftones is emo.
Deftones is Deftones.
No!
Deftones is not emo.
Maybe she wasn't talking about... it's definitely Deftones that's how she feels. I don't listen to enough of them to care, to be honest, but...
After listening to Deftones doing interviews, and they defended themselves when they said they didn't want to tour with Korn back in like 2001 because they didn't want to be classed as nu metal, and everyone was trying to put them in that bracket because they didn't know what to put them as. But they're more than happy to do a tour with Korn now because they've got their own fan bases and they appreciate the bands what they are, not just for whatever wave of trend that they were both surfing at the time, because they were both very different. And Deftones' latest stuff, the album Gore, which is coated with flamingos, is a fucking stunning album from front to back. Whereas Saturday Night Wrist it's got a few strong songs, but there are a few that just really aren't as good as what Deftones can and are now. So that is my argument for bands that have produced stronger albums more recently than the early days. Because they've found themselves and they've stayed true to who they are, but they've matured. And unfortunately, they did lose their bass player, Chi, but they've come through the other side. I just think they're just as valid as they were when they had him.
Going back to John's argument earlier, because I was thinking about it, and I didn't put two and two together at that point. Some of the bigger bands that I mentioned that started in the 90s and continued into the 2000s, and him saying their early stuff was always better, I think a lot of bands peak somewhere in the middle. As I would argue, there are bands such as Slipknot, System of a Down, Muse, where, and I wouldn't know if it was, I wouldn't know whether it was just before or just after the 2000s, that I would say personally, they kind of peaked in they found their sound. This is the best album they've ever wrote before, and that's sort of where they hit their kind of peak fan base before then it starts to teeter off because the fans then go, oh, it will never be as good as that album. And yeah, that would be quite interesting to see the dates of bands like Slipknot and System of a Down and Muse to see which of their albums was the best one and then which ones came out when. Because I've heard Slipknot's very first sort of EP album and it wasn't very good at all. They're like basement sessions. I think that was before Corey was even slinging in the band.
Slinging in the band? Like webs, like Spider-Man?
Singing in the band. Because he was in Stone Sour before Slipknot were before he was in Slipknot. Stone Sour just took a back seat.
But that's why I had to, because Slipknot is quite a large and fierce touring entity.
Oh, of course, but I mean, back then they weren't. They just got more of a following because it was a thing. Oh, they wear masks. Who are they, etc. But yeah, even let's not think about. I'm trying to think of some non-rock or metal bands, but singers are not as into that kind of music. I can't really think of anyone. Who am I going to talk about? Girls Aloud? No. But yeah, I'm not really sure.
I mean, Kurt Cobain killed himself because he never wanted to see the next millennium because he knew that music had peaked.
I don't think that's the only reason.
That's the only reason. That's what he wrote in his letter. He said, music is never going to get better than this. Kill myself.
I don't know if you're being factual because if that's the truth, then going to upset a lot of people. But I don't think that's a valid reason to kill yourself. Just don't listen to any new music. Essentially, that would be like you killing yourself, John.
Oh.
Because you don't like new music most of the time.
I love listening to new music when it's from the 90s.
No, that's a massive lie.
So, I like listening to Pantera.
When you're listening to Blue and Westlife before the Second Coming, which I would have to endure only listening to music from the 2000 onwards.
Faith No More.
See, you say this. You're a big Faith No More fan.
I'm a big fan.
Bigger than I. But I informed you that they'd released a new album almost a year after they'd released a new album. I don't think it's that.
That was nowhere near as. It just wasn't as good as what it used to be.
Back in the 90s. I just don't. I think it's one of two things. Is A, you just aren't as informed about new music as you wish you were because you just aren't, and also B, a song that you've listened to 1,000 times is never going to get beaten by a song you've just heard. My favourite bands Say Anything, and pretty much every time I listen to a new album they release, they've just released their final album, I listen to it the first time through and go, okay. And then I come back to it a month or two later and listen to it again and I go, oh, this is fantastic. And it's just because that first listen through wasn't quite what I wanted. It's because I wanted more of the same stuff and every single album's so different. That's the same thing with how Bring Me the Horizon are. Every album's been so different, but because the first EP and couple of albums were similar enough, nobody really cared. But now they're doing something different. Everyone's going, oh, it's not as good as the old stuff. Well, it's not that it's not as good. It's just different.
It's just different.
No one likes different.
Yeah, but I feel like that's kind of the difference with your tastes haven't changed in the age. Yeah, whereas other people's do. There's bands that I used to love when we were growing up. Like I'm not a huge fan of Avenged Sevenfold anymore. I don't find them very interesting, even their stuff that I used to love. Whereas when I first heard them, it was fantastic. And I don't know if that's got anything to do with the fact that... No, it hasn't. I was going to say it's because I haven't liked the last few albums, but I haven't really listened to anything post-second album of Bullet. But The Poison is still one of the best albums to me because it's one of the first properly metal albums I got into. So I don't think that's got anything to do with it.
Can I just do another little point for 2000s onwards, please?
Mm-hmm.
At work, I've got a lot of older guys, and we've got Absolute 80s on because Absolute 70s has ceased to exist for the last few years. And after listening to Absolute 80s for 2 weeks, I can almost name you the set list because there's only so many 80s songs that actually translate into the 2000s and onwards, because there's a lot of them that were of their time and they just haven't aged well, which means the playlist of songs is a lot smaller than what it probably would have been back in the day. I can appreciate that there wasn't as much music churned out as there is these days with SoundCloud rappers and people getting record deals left, right and centre from various talent shows as well. I'm not saying just because we've got more, it's good stuff. I'm just saying the actual amount of variety just isn't there as far as current pop music and what I would consider contemporary music to be.
I just think it was a lot more exciting though, wasn't it? It was a lot more exciting when a new album came out. It really meant something. You had to walk down into HMV and buy it, take it out of its packaging, put it into your CD player or your tape deck and go, I'm going to rock out to this now. Whereas now, it's just too instant. You just go on the YouTubes and the Spotifys and you go, new song out, going to listen to that. Oh, yeah, listen to it now. That's old news. It's just...
Also, I don't waste money using Spotify. I don't waste my money on an LP and go, this would be amazing, and then get disappointed and waste a tenner.
But you won't be because...
New album, and that is so-so compared to the other two old ones that I really like. I might have to give this one another listen.
Yeah, I'd say back in the dark ages that sometimes you probably forced yourself to listen to it. I mean, I'm
gonna like it.
Yeah, there's certain really famous like bands and artists that I don't get behind. Morrissey, the Smiths, the Beatles. Shouldn't say that in Liverpool, but I don't get it. Like, I appreciate that in their day they were probably quite new and exciting, but for people to still be obsessed with it now, it's like, it's the same as I see when people are obsessed with poetry. Like, I get that you're reading into it the meaning, but probably the meaning isn't quite what you think it is, and I think it's kind of been like put up on this pedestal because there's so much more that can be done with music now. Yeah, there's a load more shit that comes out, I think, but there's a load more masterpieces that can and will come out. Yes, it's never going to be exactly the same, but that's because back in the day they only had so much they could do.
Well, but that isn't that the point? Is that at the moment you're just flooded by new music all the time, whereas back in the day, if you're going to commit something to record and put it out there, it's a lot more effort, and you're going to make sure that your best songs are on there. Whereas now, if you're not putting out a new song every 30 seconds, then you're old news. And I think that good, solid music, it takes time to mature and to bake. It takes time to stew. You've got to simmer it over for several hours on the pot.
John, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I really value and appreciate that opinion you've just given me, because it meant that I came to my decision, and that is that you lose. And
yes!
But you already lost the episode, but my reasoning behind it is basically what you're saying is it's a difference between quality over quantity. And what have you been saying for the last 10 years if you owned a all-you-can-eat buffet?
Go fuck yourself.
But I mean, that probably wouldn't go down well as a title of your restaurant, but it just, you were speaking and I was just
Don't use my words against me.
But it's right, like, as me old nan used to say, I've stolen this from a comedian at some point, so credit to whoever it was. Might have been Lee Mack, I'm not sure, but if you throw enough shit, eventually some of it will stick. Whereas back in the day, you had to eat that shit, and that was kind of your only choice. I like the fact that I've got choice to listen to whatever I want, whenever I want now, rather than just having to listen to what I did. I mean, that's, as much as I liked it growing up because I didn't know any better, that's the whole joy of the fact that Top of the Pops doesn't exist anymore. Everyone's listening to something different, and there are pop music fans that now listen to metal, and metal fans that have got into dubstep, and dubstep fans that have got into 80s rock, and 80s rock
it's
fans.
It's not natural, I tell you. We need to be divided.
John is for segregation. Please follow him on Twitter if you agree. We march on the dawn of 2020.
Wow, that's quite heavy. Thank you for the win. Oh, yeah.
I don't remember the last time we had a whitewash, but yeah, John's up next week, and there's not much more to say, really.
I'd like to dedicate this win to rum, imported from Jamaica. Thank you for bestowing your awesome powers of talk now, think later. And yes, thank you very much again.
Any final words, John, before we sign off?
No.
Well, and I've been Not John, and I'm going to sign off by saying that I've recently been playing a game on my GameCube, which brought me much joy as a teenager and a younger man, and is now bringing me even more joy, but even more frustration. If you've got it, or you've got an old console, go buy Super Monkey Ball. Well, Super Monkey Ball 2 is what I've been playing, and just go back to that time and try not to put your remote through your TV. This has been Wood John Rather, and we'll see you next week when we're back from Norway.
Bye.
For the St. Patrick's Day special. We're gonna get fucked up, son. We've never all three of us been drunk recording this at the same time, so this will be interesting. You think it's usually a shit show. You have nothing. You have no idea.
Double D, double da, double D, double da.
But yeah.